Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, as the case may be. This is Janet Walker with the National Wraparound Initiative, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar focusing on TimeBanks. And before we get started, I would just like to remind you of a couple of these points up here. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at them already. But one thing, we are going to be having questions at several different points during the presentation. So if you want to chat your questions rather than holding them till the end, as we mentioned here, we will be getting to them periodically. Same thing with the Q&A muting. We will unmute you if you use the hand raising function. We will be able to unmute you to talk then. So without further ado, can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so I am very pleased to be able to introduce Lisa Conlin-Lewis to give today's webinar. Lisa has recently taken over the role of the lead for the Family Partner Task Force within the National Wraparound Initiative. She has vast experience with wraparound and, as you will find out today, with TimeBanks. I am particularly excited about this webinar because of two things that we keep seeing over and over again in our own research with wraparound and in related fields. And the first of those is that organizing the natural and informal supports, connections to community supports, is ongoing, perhaps greatest challenge to wraparound teams in terms of achieving the kind of goals and vision that are laid out in the principles of wraparound. And I think that TimeBanks represents just a fabulous way of tapping into the informal supports that are and community supports that are available and getting around some of the challenges that there are with having the wraparound team or the program have to organize all of that work. So I think I'd encourage you to listen with a creative mind to how you could use this in your own communities. I think the other thing that's particularly exciting about this is the fact that TimeBanks is something that's based on reciprocity. And we know that one of the things that is that we believe the theory of change for wraparound is particularly based on the idea of people feeling, of our families' growing sense of their own competence and ability to accomplish positive things in the world. And a whole TimeBanks philosophy and practice is built around not just getting help, but giving it as well. And from research in other areas, we know that it's the people who give help who actually, in those reciprocal relationships, kind of in an interesting way, are the ones who actually profit the most from it. So as I mentioned, I'm just very excited to hear Lisa's presentation today, and I hope that we will all find it very interesting and very profitable. Okay, thanks, Lisa.
Great, thank you, Janet. Again, good morning or good afternoon to everybody. And building off of, want to just make sure I can change the slides. Is that something I can do on my own? Great. Okay, so building off of what Janet shared around why combine wraparound with TimeBanks, in addition to what Janet was just sharing, is we're really able to look at how the strengths, the talents, the contributions of all individuals and groups are involved. So I'll talk a lot about how we traditionally have engaged people as service recipients, but how we get back to that village model of how it takes a community. And so we'll also talk about how this time banking community can really support youth and families in meeting their basic needs, making social connections, how we are supportive to building those natural supports or calling on those extended families, friends in an organized approach as we do our wraparound piece. This can also bring a much additional resources to the team along with additional natural supports. And the other piece I'll share some experience with of if you are an organization doing your wraparound initiative and working with different partners and you're trying to pull on volunteerism, not of only what have been traditionally your service recipients, but all volunteers across the community, and how you can strengthen both your paid and volunteer workforce. And of course, with all projects right now and how we're all doing system reform, anything that can help with cost savings is really important at this point in time. And again, we're dealing with time here, so we're going to talk about a different currency, not the monetary currency, but we're going to talk about the human capital, the time currency. So what is a time bank? A time bank, it is a community of caring. It is the village. It's everybody coming together. The more broad and inclusive the membership of your time bank, the more assets and contributions and talents and skills, resources you have to bring. Again, as you're building a relationship of different people coming together, the more you can build trust, build engagement, the better people will participate. And so our ability to create special projects or events that bring people together is really important, and we'll talk about that. And when I share some of the values that go into time banking, you will begin to see how it can even promote social system reform, social justice change. So right now, the first time bank, it began in 1987 more formally, but Dr. Edgar Khan, really started to think about this early on as our founder. And TimeBanks USA was founded in 1995 more as a formal nonprofit organization. TimeBanks now is spread to over 40 nations, and it's in, I want to say, at least 42 states. We have been getting a number of inquiries and new startups at TimeBanks daily. So this number is really, really starting to grow. And it's very exciting to see all across the world. Like, just for an example, time banking is not only a strong project piece of doing our work with children and families who may be at risk or have emotional or behavioral health needs, but TimeBank has been a great force in even helping to support elders and aging populations. So we were a feature article in AARP just recently, which sent a groundswell of probably at least 15 to 20 new time banks going on up. So there are time banks in most of your states and possibly even in your local community. And I encourage you to partner on, because again, the more it's broad and inclusive with different special projects of different populations, it can really begin to evolve. There's core principles and values, and I'll talk about the 5 most important ones. So just like as we talk about the core principles and values of wraparound, and we've all started to know those well, TimeBanks is built on the same type of philosophy and values and such, starting with number one, we all have assets. Everybody has something to give, no matter what age we are. And in the time banking community, the more we can be together from very young to old and working intergenerationally, we see a lot of strength in that. And so everybody has an asset, so we're always tapping into, especially our time bank coordinators, what is it you have to offer? What would you like to share? What would you like to give? What do you need? What do you want to request? But most important is we're really tapping into those strengths. So in wraparound, we also talk about strength-based and being able to look at the strengths of the child, the family, the team members. And again, this expands it one more level to not only helping that within that child and family team towards the child and family's well-being and outcomes, but then this starts to expand in a whole network, a whole community. And so the second value is how we begin to really think about the contributions and recognizing the contributions of everybody and how we redefine work. And that some work is beyond the price. In time banking, how we look at that is we're operating really under 2 different types of economies. One that we're all a big part of, and that's the monetary economy. And we know based on our different backgrounds or what skills we have or what job position we begin to take in that monetary world, we get a payment or receive an hourly wage or a salary in accordance with. or we pay for different resources and needs. But there's real important things that are the fabric of our community every day, such as taking care of children by other family members, the next door neighbor helping the child off the school bus, the things that we call in the wraparound world natural supports that we don't pay for but are necessary to our health and well-being and fabric. And we call that core economy. And these are everyday activities that we all do to contribute to our own family, our own neighborhood, our own community, or even a charitable cause as such, that really need to be honored and rewarded. Dr. Edgar Kahn, he wrote the book No More Throwaway People, in which how everybody is valuable and has a valuable contribution to make. And that the more we recognize and really tap into the assets of everybody, and really that we honor and we record that, we can do so much more together. Another core value is reciprocity, as Janet had mentioned, and we think of that everybody feels much better when you can not only receive something, you always want to give back in some way, even if it's a thank you or what can you do to be able to express how somebody supported you. And so again, sometimes in the provider world or how individuals have received services to date, it can feel one way. It can feel like I'm the receiver. I have to meet this need or comply with a service. But really, the more we can begin to look at service recipients, which I'll get into co-production in a few minutes, we really begin to think about giving and receiving, that everybody in the relationship and as we work together needs to feel givers and receivers. So if I was a natural support on a child and family team and I was, giving 2 to 3 hours a week to help the child that I was connected with, I may be able to earn 3 time hours for the help and support I gave. Maybe I gave some mentoring and I came to a team meeting. Those 3 hours would be my 3 hours I earned and gave to help another. And now I have 3 hours back in the large time bank, the inclusive membership, to pull upon assets of others that I may need or like. Which brings us to another value, and that is really the value of social networking, of community, of our ability to reconnect and how much we all need each other. And so, to me, when we talk about wraparound and how our success is that when we can get to 70% of the team is of natural supports, we know that family is starting to harness a social network. In TimeBanks, membership of that TimeBank in some communities have now ranged over 2,000 members, as a good example of that is in New York City. And that one started, that TimeBank started out of a visiting nurse association and now is very much serving many different populations and connecting with the whole community of all ages. But then that begins to build a real sense of trust in how we can begin to do that work together. And I will share how we have some technologies and tools that begin to help us do that. And then the value that really begins to come about as you hear these other values coming together is that every human being matters and that everybody really deserves that mutual respect. And that as we really are sharing in community and coming together, then we begin to even think about how we can make social change. So we move from neighbor to neighbor to individual exchanges or helping on a child and family team to how some TimeBanks are even working in partnerships between individual to individual, individual to organization, organization to organization, and everybody is starting to work on different special projects that promote social change or transformation, which I will talk about. And many of these things, as we work in these different special projects, bring a level of equality to different populations where maybe they have not been able to access different needs. Especially in today's economy, this is becoming very important, and I see time banking really beginning to create a safety net and even providing a level of informal supports and resources that are getting harder to reach based on a monetary approach. So how do we really think about creating this circle of giving? As I shared, we look at things as time out. We used to say time dollars. We're starting to say more hours because especially with so much going on around economics and the whole push of alternative or complementary currencies and or a separation between what is monetary or time-based, we're saying hours or credits. And so 1 equals 1 no matter what. So whatever I give in my hour time is equal to what I could receive. And it's also based on really a sense of helping and supporting each other. So it isn't that just I receive today, so today I immediately have to give, or vice versa. We have TimeBank members that sometimes are running a negative, and we talk it out with them, and or they're in more need to begin with, or we have some people who are great givers, and I have to work with them to get them in a balance of beginning to receive, because what's key is the importance of this reciprocity of giving and receiving and really being able to have a sense of that intrinsic reward that comes with that reciprocity, which really does propel people to really take time banking more seriously and begin to function and operate along through a time banking mode. We're not out to replace the monetary economy. We're out to supplement. We're out to support. We're out to build a safety net. And again, that's pretty critical at this time of economics. So here's a few examples of what you can give and what you receive, and this is pretty endless. You know, I'll be showing some examples on our technology, how we track and look at this, but here's some good examples. You know, transportation's probably one of the most important ones in thinking about that. Child care, respite, wellness. You know, we're started to recruit from our local colleges and integrated wellness groups, how to really bring this to life. Recreation, we know, is a huge one as we are working with children within the wraparound. So all of these I can go on, but you can see the endless possibilities of really how you can begin to build this asset inventory of exchanges. And this becomes really important to get a good sense of your overall community. What are the assets we all have to work with? So we're really starting to pull this together. I see our time banks are extremely inclusive, very diverse, very different backgrounds. We really underpin ourselves by the core values. We do a lot of potluck, social events, things that bring community together so that we can really begin to build this support with one another. Co-production. So you heard me talk about the monetary or money economy and the core economy of home, family, and community. And so what we're doing as we experiment with co-production is how we start to bring service systems. So we have all our professional providers and those who are paid through the wraparound projects in your communities, and they're all working together, and they may have different professional roles and responsibilities, one of them being to serve clients. Well, what we're doing in co-production is we're saying, wow, let's not just have clients be served, let's enlist clients, or as we call families or members or those who are in need, to really begin to not only be seen as receiving, but what could they begin to help and support. And the time banks, as you see, begins to really provide a structure for bringing that to life. I'm showing you now, and this will be a handout that you can bring back to your communities, is we have this co-production Fidelity tool that we're just starting to work on. And as we begin to evolve this, we'll really want to work in partnership with the National Wraparound Initiative to see how co-production does add not only that we're achieving co-production, but how does it measure against with the wraparound process. So if I'm thinking of, again, and basing that on the key values and I'm really trying to do co-production, how am I, as a provider every day, asking what the individual I'm working with or the youth that I'm working with could do for others? Do I ask that question? Am I asking if they're supported in other ways that what are the ways they could help others, and how could I support them in that? What are their skills that they really utilize daily that would be a great asset to somebody else? Like if they have a good running car and they're probably maybe the only one on their street that does, they could be a great asset to the rest of their neighbors. And then also another great asset is a really good understanding of their native language, their culture, their backgrounds, and how that could begin to support, especially if I'm a new person in the community and I come from another culture and I feel isolated and I need to meet other people that know my culture or my language. How are we tapping on those assets of the individuals we work with every day? In addition, when we look at that from a level of the second value of redefining work, these could be the question that is going to yourself as a wraparound initiative in your group. Are we recording and recognizing and rewarding the contributions of the individuals we may be serving or who are members of our group? Are we beginning to value their input in needs and solutions, not only for themselves, but for the other families in the community that all are maybe a part of your whole initiative? And then in our budgets, do we put anything aside for those rewards or incentives? And in some cases now where we have strong affiliate TimeBank organizations, they actually create a community pot of hours that have been donated that can serve as those rewards and incentives of additional hours of support to others. As we look at reciprocity, that two-way street, are we supporting our members in ways that they could help others in return for services? So, I could be in the wraparound and I'm recognizing I could really use help with somebody coming in to help me organize my house because my house is in disarray because I've got 3 kids and I'm chasing them all around. So I could really use that help. So somebody's coming in to help me do that. And then my son would really like to have guitar lessons because he loves guitar. And so maybe somebody's given some time hours for that. So I'm going to need help to figure out how I could help others in return for those great things I'm engaging in. And again, how could I further help your organization's mission? There's things I could do to help out or be a part of. And how am I even getting to be part of policies and procedures? And is there a key person even in your own time, in your own wraparound that can work in partnership with the TimeBank to really record and help to support these exchanges? This is a piece that we look at as we've been building the TimeBank in Rhode Island, as we think of family and youth engagement and or even community engagement, that we may not be able to pay monetary stipends to individuals, but we could give out time hours or time credits to individuals who are giving of their time to be part of the helping to build the infrastructure and the policies and that kind of input. And then as we build community, again, how are we really starting to build that informal support and peer groups, social events, celebrations, really trying to go to that next level of development. And again, these are key things that we know are successful in wraparound and system of care. So how are we promoting and using TimeBank as a way to measure that we really are getting the co-production? And I think in the system of care world or wraparound world, we look at family youth engagement and such as we call family driven. From TimeBanking, we call that co-production. And again, you can see through these different examples that this is a good tool for you to begin to say, well, maybe we don't engage and do these types of things to maybe we already are doing a lot of this. You may not be calling it time banking, but you are doing a lot of this, and have you put the right rewards in place? So this is a helpful tool, and this will be up on the website. This next document slide that I'm showing that was done by Stephanie Rarick, this is from the Dane County Time Bank in Madison, Wisconsin. And they're a very large time bank. I think they're close to 2,000 members, a college local community. And you can see that they, as a community time bank, they have begun to map all the different groupings of different partners that they could have within their community. And they begin to look at how they could begin to build time banking special projects or the types of exchanges that could partner with these kind of organizations or government or institutions that you see here. So this is a great way of you beginning to see, really, again, you don't only need to build on a neighbor-to-neighbor, individual-to-individual, though that's how many time banks start at a testing level to sort of get a sense of how it works, but this can get to the level that it's a partnership even at an organization-to-organization level. This is this comes out of, there was out of the New Economics Foundation. There was this great book that was done, The New Wealth of Time, and this will also be a handout that is up on the National Wraparound Initiative website. And this came out of a project in Wales, and I thought it was a good way, if I was running my own wraparound initiative and thinking about how to combine time banking, I would probably want to begin to take some of these steps in reviewing our own mission and values. How does that relate to time bank values? What is, the aim of our activity, and maybe it's a special population or focus that you're focused on within your wraparound. So how might it be enhanced by time banking, or what might those approaches look like? Again, I talked a lot about local assets and what could we tap into, even doing the mapping of what I just shared. Who might be those allies or partners that could really work with us? And then we can really begin to look at existing time bank approaches, and again, how I shared these different person-to-person, person-to-agency, agency-to-agency. The book that you will see that from the New Economics Foundation, when you look at that, are a lot of great case studies. Most of them are from the UK and over in Wales and such, but I think they're on the right track, and there's been so much good work here that I could really see us adapting some of these frameworks and models that would work well with wraparound. One assessment tool, as we begin to look at the measurement around that, and this came out of actually the Clapham Park Time Bank, is being able to really, they had a number of case studies that look at mental health and well-being, and I think they were looking at youth and adults, not just at a child level. But I think 4 key areas that they were focusing in on the assessment tool was that feeling of enhancing that control, that ability, in the wraparound world that we call self-efficacy, and really being able to feel strong within yourself, to being able to show a reduction in anxiety, and then increasing our participation, and through that we promote inclusion. So I think this is a good assessment to be able to look at, and wanted to point out a few tools that could help you to measure if you were adding this to a wraparound initiative. And again, you can begin to see in this table how they are working towards the mental health well-being indicators, and across those areas of increasing control, reducing anxiety, and increasing participation and inclusion. And they're seeing great outcomes as they begin to look at this. And this is also came out of the work in the same project, where they created a recovery star that's really helping them to measure outcomes across a range of the individuals that are involved in their projects, or at a level of membership as it relates to mental health. So these can actually be measured to see how change is occurring around some of these key areas, such as managing your own mental health, self-care, living skills, relationships. I won't go into all of them, but I think this is important at a child, family, even a parental level, as we're working with different populations, that we can really begin to utilize these measures to see how we're seeing a change. Huge one, many times, social isolation versus strong social connections. And then I'm going to stop here for a few moments and take a question or two before I get into some of the nuts and bolts of how time banking works in our community weaver. Janet, how do we best facilitate that?
Well, at this point, I'm not seeing any questions in the hand raising. I'm checking if you people out there, if you have a question, you can check the little button that says raise your hand and we'll get to you. And also no questions currently in the chat queue, so you might want to just keep going, I guess.
Okay, I will do that then. So what you see in front of you on this slide is we have, we're excited to share that TimeBanks has actually become part of the open source software community. And this is really our technology that helps us weave the virtual social network of the community and working together. So I'm just going to show you some quick slides that give you a sense of how we organize the TimeBank behind the scenes. So this first slide just really lets you see that each person becomes a member. They enter into a password protected community. Usually most communities ask for 2 reference checks and or may do a criminal background check depending on the types of different sources they're going to use. In addition, this next slide begins to show that each member, once they become a member of the TimeBank, they have their own portfolio. And in that portfolio, it begins to share what some of my affiliations are, if I belong to different groups, what are the areas I can help and support, what might be some of my current offers, or I can post a new offer, a little background about me, what I might be requesting. In addition, this is gives you a picture around giving and receiving. This is like a marketplace where we can see the asset inventory of all the offers and the requests across a number of different category areas so that you can begin to track that. And everybody begins to communicate back and forth through emails. Some of our TimeBank members aren't big email internet people. That's where coordinators jump in and do that. A number of our TimeBanks have paper directories. We're in the process right now of a core group working on getting this all translated into Spanish, and other languages will be coming up soon too. This is just an example that you would be able to post your offer request and actually put in a short title, maybe some description, when you would need it, how often, how much. This is everybody gets to see their hours and transactions and get a balance, and they can run that for a short period of time to a full period of time, and it helps us to see how they're exchanging and what are their trends in that. It's also a great way of tracking in-kind support. This is the coordinator panel, so members have one level of ability, and then if you're a coordinator, you can really get into designing and furthering the website, this database itself. You can pull certain different reports. We have a lot that can be done through RSS feed or CSV files and such, so you can pull a different number of reports, and this becomes great as we're using it as a management tool. I'm going to back up because I'm just going to go to one more slide. I think I missed one slide going up a minute. Maybe it was the other way. Nope, it is the other way. I apologize. And that was what we're doing in Rhode Island, which I think is important. Or maybe got cut out. Well, let me talk about it. In Rhode Island, I think key things that we've done to build the TimeBank is really we build the foundation of being open, inclusive. Everybody in Rhode Island can join TimeBanks. We're working really hard around that. In addition, we are working on creating, we received a grant actually called the Lifespan Respite Grant. So we have been utilizing TimeBanks as a way to build respite at a volunteer level. At the same time, we're advocated for expanded respite. So we are utilizing time banking to actually do workforce development and training respite providers and caregivers, because many of our caregivers, if they go to seek a provider and can have it paid for, many times that level of training is placed upon them. So we're doing a lot of work with the training, working with a number of workforce development and provider partners within the state. Then people can utilize those respite hours in a time banking fashion, and we do that across all ages and groups, not just children with emotional behavioral needs, but we do it across all children with special needs, adults with developmental disabilities and or acquired disabilities, and our aging populations. So respite has become a key thing. As we were doing respite, that expanded to not only respite, like our Diocese of Providence was seeing, they were getting need for homemaker service, somebody to go in and do errands or help with organizing the house or meal preparation. And then our community action programs that were working with families at risk of child welfare started to ask for something similar, but more in the type of a parent aid and being able to help with parental, parenting education, or being able to help organize the house, as the example that I had given earlier, or giving transportation or rides. So we've gone from respite to now we're really calling it the care exchange, and we're looking at all these various different services and supports in addition to all the assets that exist in the time bank. Another special project is we had the opportunity through some Olmsted funding and then getting an earmark grant through a legislative earmark grant in partnership with our Rhode Island Mentoring Partnership to be able to recruit youth mentors for youth at risk. So now we've been doing individual and group mentoring. Those group mentoring opportunities have really provided an enhanced after-school programs, and through those group programs, then people getting matched to an individual mentor 1 hour at a time, once a week for a 1-year commitment. So that's another piece that has really been adding and sort of builds on the wraparound. As we work with our wraparound partners across the state, we're starting to receive direct referrals now for a family to join TimeBanks and be able to utilize the time banking exchanging as a way to enhance their care plans and be part of that process. We are doing work within the Rhode Island Training School, where we had youth who, even though they were incarcerated, were able to earn time hours and use that as either incentives there that they were able to utilize there at the training school, and or be able to share them with their family or save them for when they got out of the training school. And it's been great. Not only are they utilizing the exchanges, but they're staying connected to the time bank and part of that process. So I think those examples of how we're really using it in Rhode Island as it can support our population become really important. So key ingredients are, if I'm going to need some people to harness this and take this on. You may not have to create a whole governance team if you already have one for your wraparound, but it will take a lot of work to build a time bank if you're building a large one versus you may be a project but you don't want the time bank only to be for the population or only inviting the population you're working with. It's really important to have inclusive membership. Some of our time banks are very informal, just neighbors and family getting together on a street to some have become very formalized, such as ours in Rhode Island, where we have a director, we have paid staff, blended with really doing co-production and volunteerism. We are utilizing the Community Weaver software. We are also creating paper directories. We really are doing a lot of outreach and marketing to get the word out and helping people to understand how to be a TimeBank member or how to utilize it. We're learning about policies and procedures, especially around creating a safe community by being broad and inclusive. Everybody who's a member of the TimeBank is covered under SEMA volunteer insurance. So we have to, one of the appealing things as we have worked with our wraparound partners is our ability that we're a safe community that does the reference checks and has the liability insurance in place and everybody connected through an insurance. Some TimeBanks don't have that at all, and they've done really great, and I'm not aware of any lawsuits in any of the TimeBanks after all the years we've been doing it here in the States. We're doing a lot of work from a coordination level, as I shared in the co-production chart, of really matching, building, and connecting individuals. Lots of social events, like right now we're organizing our next big event is going to be our trade fair. So the TimeBanks Trade Fair will be a place to really come to this fun atmosphere, this fun fair, but at the same time we are really beginning to create a whole way of sharing what are our assets and getting people to build those exchanges together. We're just starting now to really pull the right data out of our TimeBank that's helping us to get the outcome success stories of really collecting those stories is really important. All our coordinators spend a lot of time doing follow-up, quality assurance, really mentoring and nurturing those exchange relationships, whether that's individual to individual or really partnering with another organization. I'll go into this a little later, just the final things that we offer at TimeBanks USA, but be happy to field any questions.
Well, Lisa, we have a bunch of questions actually that have come in. I think people, now that they're getting a sense of what TimeBanks can do, are kind of curious about how they can get started. So suppose they wanted to find out, first of all, if there's an existing TimeBank in your state or your city, how do you go about finding that out?
Okay, so everybody would want to become acquainted with our website, which is www.timebanks.org. And when you go to that website, right up in your left-hand corner, it says Community Weaver, and that brings you to our directory, and you can see the directory of, especially the state listing is going to give you the best overview, because you could type in a name of a TimeBank, and if it's not a geographic region, it might not show up. But if you go into our United States list, you will really get to see what exists in your state and or community.
And then you mentioned the software, the Weaver, Community Weaver?
Community Weaver, yes.
So what is that exactly, and is that on the web for people to use? Do they have to set it up themselves? How does that work out?
Yep, the Community Weaver, there is a cost associated with the number of members you will have in your TimeBank, but it is a software that once you get registered with us at TimeBanks, then you're able to access that Community Weaver software. We have a annual fee for the use of that for hosting and maintenance. On our membership page, there's a scale of price around that. It's not really high, but it's important because you're on a big shared server and we're doing the hosting maintenance along with each TimeBank that's utilizing Community Weaver is its own instance, meaning that if you have a background in software, especially Drupal, because we're on 6.2 Drupal, and I say to every TimeBank right now, find your Drupal group in your community, because that's going to allow you to really further adapt and build your TimeBanking as far as you would like to take, really take development of it. which could bring in even a higher level of evaluation or needed features and such, which we're continually doing too.
So when
we have tutorials, manuals, we get together on bi-weekly calls with all our coordinators.
And when I went to find out about TimeBanks in Portland, maybe not surprisingly, it turned out that there was a TimeBank already established here. And you go to get signed up, you go to an introductory meeting, it's a potluck, and you get your first TimeBank credits for actually attending the meeting. So I don't know, is that a typical experience, or is it just different every place?
I think it's different every place, but very common is, and I try to say that if I made the effort to come to the orientation and to learn about time banking, I didn't just get my 2 time credits or hours, I earned them. So I think that one of the things I see a lot in time banking is people feel really good about giving. And I think that's what drives time banking. I know many people have requests and they receive, but I think what drives it is that even those people that receive are driven by the need to give. And so I think there's always incentives, especially if we're coming together, we're doing any type of event and people are putting their energies into that, we're rewarding that with hours. To where I may say, I'm going to teach a Spanish class. Everyone's going to come learn Spanish. And as the instructor, I did my 2 hours of Spanish teaching. So I earned 2 time hours, but I had 8 people come to that class. So collectively, there was actually 16 hours of time in that exchange. And those other 14 hours was the ability to go back into the community pot for those incentives, like those 2 time hours that had to come from somewhere when somebody joined the time bank.
I have another question here. Is it only for individuals, or can community providers join? If so, how does an agency track and use the hours earned?
Right. So everybody can join TimeBanks, whether you're an individual, organization, business, or informal group. You would, if you're an individual, you're signing up at a personal level and it revolves around you, the individual. Or if I'm signing up as, say, a local nonprofit organization, I would be talking to that nonprofit to get a sense of what they might like to offer. And that offer may look different based on the assets of the organization versus the assets of an individual. So that organization may have great community space that could be utilized, that they could offer, or they may be willing to provide a training on behalf of their organization. So I would tap into what works best for them. And then I'd also say, so what do you really need as a support in that? And they could say, well, we can't afford a receptionist anymore to answer the phone. It would be great to have some individuals that would come answer our phones. So it's really individualized to each, whether it's an individual or organization. And I always say it's really good to have that concrete discussion of one offer or one request and getting people to try that, especially in the first 30 days of sign up, so they get a sense of how that exchange really works and feels.
Just a follow-up to that, we have someone that's asking about whether there are kind of conflicts or problematic issues that come up with your agency. For example, if professional ethics conflict with TimeBanks by encouraging, outside or dual roles or relationships.
I have not seen it yet. I think it's about complementing and really having proactive discussions, not to duplicate. Our TimeBank work is really at a informal, natural support level. If anything, we're not out to replace the paid workforce. We're there to enhance and support. And my goal would be, let's take the example of individuals who are going through our training to be a respite provider. My goal is that they would at some point become part of the paid workforce of service provision, and that they're gaining the skills, competencies, and experience they need in their resume that will enable them to be a stronger member of the paid workforce that the providers would really be leading, not the time bank. I don't know if that helps to answer the question.
Well, I'm getting more and more questions here. I have another one. There's a series of questions, people who are interested in what if there is no existing time bank and you want to set it up? Sort of what are the steps? How do you introduce that to your wraparound program? I guess that would be whether there's an existing one or not. I mean, do you just have them join, or do you facilitate their joining? I guess that's kind of two questions. So.
Right. Well, you know, I think if there was not an existing time bank in my community, I would, you know, one as an individual or a group, think about what that would mean to start one up and what would our overall mission or first special project be. And if that was, I really wanted to help build a time bank because I saw the benefits of it enhancing my wraparound initiative, I may want to approach the wraparound project to see if they would help to, you know, support the capacity building within that. And I think if I was approaching a time bank that already exists, I would again be having those conversations, almost going back to that chart of looking at how we could partner together to integrate or work together. They're never going to be one and the same. There's always going to be a time bank initiative and or a wraparound initiative. Even when we were birthed out of Parent Support Network of Rhode Island, the family organization, we weren't out to replace the family organization because we had a broader, bigger mission. But our first special projects we did, as you can hear, the things that we're doing enhance and support the populations that Parent Support Network has been serving. But you're going to need a level, you know, I don't know most people who are volunteering to take this on or create one are investing at least 10 hours a week of time bank time and are getting paid. And the more, you know, again, you may need a combination depending how large of a project or initiative you're building, of a combination of paid and or volunteer-led staff through a time bank exchange.
And so say in a city level thing like maybe what you have in Rhode Island, I mean, what are the costs, and who actually supports the money cash costs of providing the time bank?
Good question. Right now we're mainly supported through federal grants, and other than that it is very membership led. So we have a federal lifespan respite grant out of the Administration of Aging that then is a partnership in our own state agencies. And that's to create coordination across the lifespan of respite care, so it's been good as a catalyst to bring interagency partnership together. In addition, we had the federal legislative year funds that earmarks that came in for a short time under a system of care grant in Rhode Island. We received a level of support, and in the beginning through our statewide family network grant. Majority right now is member-led being volunteerism through a time bank exchange. So anybody who is giving hours to support our infrastructure and implementation is earning time hours. We are now covering, because of the grant, we have been able to cover volunteer insurance on everybody, and that averages $4 to $11 depending on what types of volunteer insurance you get. So we get the basic $1 million liability, $25,000 of medical and accidental insurance over your medical if you don't have medical, and $25,000 transportation car insurance over and above your current insurance policies. That's not based on every member, so if I have 300 members, I'm not paying that for 300 members. I'm paying it on the average exchanges per day. So if we do 100 exchanges daily, that's more what we're paying on. Or if I'm doing 20 daily, that's what I'm paying on.
And that's the SEMA insurance that you referred to previously?
Yeah, SEMA World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that, that's a good, if you're under a nonprofit infrastructure already and you're wanting to put another level of protection there, that's when that is best. I know for a number of our funders, they feel really good that we are carrying that.
Okay, well, I'm going to try calling on some people here who have been patiently having their hands up. We had quite the list of questions, so I'm going to see how this works. So I'm going to call on Andrea Parrish, and I'm unmuting you now. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. My question was somewhat addressed in that we're pressing buttons here because we're having a lot of echoes. I don't know if you can still hear me.
I can hear you. If you feel more comfortable, I mean, just talk ahead. We can hear you okay, or if you want to just chat the question, we can do that too.
Okay. My question is in regards to if there's an existing TimeBank in a community, which there are several in Washington State, is there an effective way to kind of introduce the concept of social service joining that TimeBank, or is it just let the members, the individuals, clients join and not introduce that as a concept at all?
I think every TimeBank is a little bit different, and that it really depends on their mission and what their size is as a group. So you may have a group that's only 20 people or just getting started, and they may be wanting to stay very informal and not ready to go into social service partnerships. That doesn't mean you can't create another bigger, broader TimeBank, and then at a later date they can decide if their small group wants to be a part of that. Or you could have 10 TimeBanks side by side. I think it goes back to what is the mission or inclusiveness of your TimeBank. So there will be some TimeBanks that right from the beginning are focused on a special population or need, to some that are very broad and inclusive. So I would, as you approach local TimeBanks near you, get a sense of what their mission or what they're working towards, and that will give you a sense. I would definitely ask and see if they have an openness to that, because it may be that they just haven't gone in that direction because they hadn't thought of it first, but they would be very open to the idea, especially if there was partner resources coming along with it. But I think we have some TimeBanks that never want to be over 20 members, to others that want to really get everybody in that whole geographic region to join. If they are mostly volunteer-based, they're going to have a harder time meeting, say you have 200 families and you would really like them to join and really take and receive a level of exchanging that's even connected to their care plan. You may need to put more infrastructure and capacity into that. Hope that helps to answer. Can you guys still hear me? Hello?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Other questions?
There was a follow-up about the software. That people wanted to know a little bit more detail about the cost. So I think you said that varied depending on the size of your project.
It really does. Yeah, and if you go to our membership page, you can get a sense of that. First, if you're just wanting to test this, first of all, we have what's called the sandbox, and that's a demo. So if you go to our directory page, anybody can go in and try that out, both as a member user and or coordinator. Both of those features are there. So go in, test it out. We have a small marketing video you can listen to too, and we have some nice tutorials coming out hopefully by the end of this week. So each, for 20 members, say I'm coming together, 20 members, I can do a $25 trial, and then it steps up for, 50 to 100 members. It starts to run to 100 to 200. It comes out over somewhere between $2 to $1 per member till you start to go over the 500 mark in membership, and then it starts to work its way to towards under $1 per member. So any TimeBank that's over 1,000 members, you're paying less than $1 per member. Each of the local TimeBanks handles differently, whether they collect membership fees or our TimeBank in Rhode Island is very open, and we really have an open membership and everybody can join. And right now we're fortunate with our different grants that are in place that nobody is paying a membership fee, but we're always taking donations, to where there's other TimeBanks that are dependent on whatever their operations are around their membership fee.
And is that a yearly or a monthly cost or what?
For the TimeBanks, as far as a membership with the Community Weaver, that's annual, but we also work out monthly if people need it, or any kind of arrangement. We don't want to have projects go without. And then each local TimeBank, they usually set their own annual membership fee. Mm-hmm. If they charge. Some charge, some don't.
Okay, quick question here. Are there marketing materials that you've already developed that people can use in their own communities to recruit new TimeBank members?
We are starting to collect those, so a number of the TimeBanks now are starting. We have a public files area, and we've been working on a repository to put those informations up. So we have what's called the Action Hub, and that's our learning community. So individuals can join the Action Hub to become part of our learning community. We have ongoing calls, we have work groups, we have discussion forums. We also do regional trainings. Our next regional training will be on May 18th, 19th in Pennsylvania.
I have another question just as far as setting them up. So where do TimeBanks reside? I guess that might mean a physical location in various communities, and does it take a full-time coordinator?
So they reside, again, they can reside right in somebody's home and be all volunteer, just be a kitchen table cabinet, very informal too. I definitely encourage nonprofits, especially in today's economy, to get a sponsor nonprofit or agency to work with you, then really try to start your own 501c through scratch, because all your resources are going to go to that. So I see that being different based on how far. If you want to do something like we're doing in Rhode Island so that we can be an instrumental key partner with our wraparound initiative, you are going to want to probably start off, I think you can get a basic operations with about $70,000, and that will support a level of administration leadership, one key paid coordinator, volunteer insurances and such, some flexible budgets for more being part of tables at community resource fairs. We do a lot of potluck. We're not in the habit of paying for food. We believe big in potluck.
And just real quick, how long has the Rhode Island TimeBank been going on?
We have been in operations for 3 years, but I would say our first year was not about really delivering and being an exchange network. The first year was really getting our partners comfortable with what is time banking, doing a lot of outreach and awareness, doing a lot of planning work, talking to our state agencies and other community-based partners. And then in the second year, we started to do a lot of recruitment, expanding our outreach and doing a lot of recruitment and getting some of these special projects going. to where now we're really getting into really teaching everybody how to exchange at the levels of, individual to individual, neighbor to neighbor, individual to organization. So we're really starting to get into that experimentation.
So here's kind of a long question. Can you speak to the reality that if I offer a service as an organization, but my monetary expense for offering that service is $50 an hour, what if the services I receive in return do not have the same monetary value? If I offer TimeBank services, I cannot bill that time to insurance or other monetary funders.
Nope, you can't. So this is a time exchange, nothing to do with monetary exchange, and that's actually how we have been able to say tax exempt and not be seen, because bartering, if I was to give a monetary exchange of equal value, that would be taxable income. We worked really hard to get federal rulings and recognition to be seen more as tax exempt, charitable. So the key thing about getting to respect or equality is we're not looking at the monetary value. We're saying everybody is of equal. So if I'm a young child raking leaves in somebody's yard, that is equivalent to 1 hour of computer software service. So everything is based on 1 hour to 1 hour of an equality. And we may go back and do those things in our monetary world, but when we're doing it under time banking, we're giving of an hour of time. We're not combining it with monetary.
So I have a couple questions here I'm going to try to combine about evaluation and outcomes. So you mentioned some studies. Are they collected somewhere? Is there a brief that includes that information written up anywhere? And particularly, are there studies that are relevant to vulnerable populations and kids and families like the wraparound population?
Right. So part of why I shared the New Economics Foundation, because I think that work has been further done in the UK, and that's a great document to look at. So I would encourage you to look at that document, because there is a lot of mental health focus there. In addition, there's been more work done, I would say, much more around the elder care populations, and New York City is a great place, and our website has a number of these things on our press area and our resources area. We are just now, even ourselves in Rhode Island, and I think we're one of the people ahead of the curve, getting to the level of outcomes and evaluation and getting the right data sets to track that. Washington, D.C. Youth Court, founded by Dr. Edgar Kahn, operating is getting some great outcome information in regards to restorative justice and decreasing recidivism through the TimeBanks Youth Court there, as is Dane County. Madison, Wisconsin is also doing a youth court. That might be one question I have. I know Dr. Edgar Kahn, our founder, was going to try to join the call. I'm not sure if he has, but if he has, this might be a nice time to see if he's on the call and wants to help respond.
Okay, I do see him here, so I'm going to unmute. So there you go. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Great.
Welcome, Edgar.
Good to join you. Why don't we go, because I literally just walked in and dialed up, so why don't you, if you could either give me a question or a brief or a query, I can certainly talk about about the youth court if that's what you're interested in. Or I heard earlier a question about what happens if monetary costs are involved, and I did want to slightly amend Lisa's answer to say that, for instance, supposing you have babysitting and there are some expenses involved in providing the food. There's nothing contrary to what we're saying if there's a pass-through actual cost involved. That doesn't affect the value of the time. It's simply a reimbursement for a cost entailed in providing the service. It's like if you give rides, some time banks say kick in something for the gasoline, and but the time for the time is a one-for-one with no charge.
Thank you. And I believe that also Lisa kind of passed on to you or asked if you could fill in some information about what the level of research is, what maybe the outcomes are that people are examining in the research, and particularly if there's any research that pertains to outcomes for children and families in vulnerable populations like the wraparound population.
The nearest we have to outcomes involves, as you mentioned, the youth court. There have been uses of time banking I know in mental health down in Miami, where they found that this radically reduced the social isolation of those families. I know we've seen similar outcomes in the state of Washington. I'm thinking of Bob Jones, Lisa, and his results, but none of it's been adequately documented. The thing that's been documented with youth in the youth court, who are kids who have committed some kind of an offense, and we've looked at control groups there, and the recidivism rate for the control groups has been in the 25 to 35% range, whereas the recidivism for kids who have gone to the youth court has been below 10%, and where there has been recidivism, it's been no more than once in a year, whereas for those in the control group, it's been 2 to 3 times a year, usually with increasingly significant offenses and consequences. So there we do have some experience. I think the other place where we did see consistent experience, but it wasn't adequately documented, was in dealing with learning disabilities and kids who otherwise would be consigned to either special ed or had major problems with reading. In Chicago, we had the older kids, 5th and 6th graders, some of whom themselves had been labeled special ed, providing reading and homework help to the kids in 1st and 2nd grade, and there was virtually an elimination of any need for special ed for those kids in 1st and 2nd grade, and we saw consistently improved and enhanced results for kids, for the 5th and 6th graders who were doing the tutoring, and as a result, several of the schools where we did this got off of academic probation. That doesn't mean that we have the kinds of outcomes that normally are associated with carefully controlled experiments and so forth, but we do see significant outcomes both on an anecdotal basis and on a group basis.
And is there a central location or a list or a review of research or links to published studies or reports that people can access? Is there anything like that?
Lisa, you have ones that have been provided by Abby Letcher and Ed Cohen.
Yes, and a number of those are on our website under resources and or press. And there's actually about 4 or 5 new ones that will be coming up real soon.
Okay, well, we have actually exhausted our question list. I don't see anyone currently with a hand raised, so I would like to take this opportunity to thank both of you for being on the webinar and to reiterate how important I think this is as a potential tool for using with wraparound in addressing really the perennial and most intractable difficulty that wraparound programs face, which is how to connect people to the informal supports in their community, how to integrate those into the wraparound program, and how to help people feel valuable and like they are contributors, not just recipients of help. So thanks again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.